Why do people find sales so difficult, do you think?
We all sell, whether you're running your own business and you're actually having to generate sales for your business, or even selling to your family, your partner, your kids. But this concept of being a salesperson is a challenging one because we have stereotypes associated with it. And that makes us feel a bit icky.
Hello and welcome to Berko and Beyond, the weekly local business podcast celebrating the people who live, work and do business in Berkhamsted and the surrounding area. I'm your host, Ben Baldwin, and I run Chuffed Productions, a B2B video production company that's been based here in Berko for the last 6 years or more. Now, Berkhamsted and the surrounding towns and villages are full of brilliant people doing brilliant things, and this podcast was created to tell their stories. The goal is for it to become a part of our fantastic local business community, supporting sole traders and local businesses of all sizes. Now, as part of building that community, I actually have to ask you for a big favour straight off the bat. Podcasts like this only thrive when you like, follow and share them. So please follow Berko and Beyond wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. And if you're watching right now on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It makes a massive difference to the show's reach. And sharing is, of course, caring, so please do tell your friends, colleagues and clients alike. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, then drop us an email. The address is podcast@berkoandbeyond.com. Leigh Cohen, welcome to Berko and Beyond.
Thank you.
Leigh Cohen of Sales Geek. Now, we had to get you on episode 3, mainly because you were mentioned so many times in episode 1 and episode 2. So you probably should have sponsored those episodes, to be honest. But now you've got your very own. Welcome along.
Thanks very much.
Tell us a little bit about Sales Geek, and actually tell us a little about the involvement as well that you have with Decorum's Den.
Maybe I'll start with Decorum's Den. So, I known Christy for a while since working in the local area, and we've been talking. I got to understand a bit about what Berkhamsted Den was all about, which I absolutely love, and it nicely blended with the kind of mission side of the business, which is really just focusing purely on helping local businesses and understanding that those local businesses don't necessarily have the commercial background experience that might be needed in terms to grow their business. And they're on their own, they're sitting there in front of their screens and trying to build something from nothing and experts at what they do. And just love this idea that the council is investing in that and generating this sort of quite fun way of creating a bit of funding. And then finding out that they've got to go and pitch into the Dragons. And so I thought, possibly there's a need for a bit of training in that space if they haven't had that before. And so we had a discussion and thought I'd run this sort of training boot camp on pitching to help them put their best foot forward in front of the judges and be able to retell their story in the best way possible.
Part of what we talked about on the last episode actually is if you're new to business, as a lot of people are, or actually even if you've been around a while, you might not have done certainly that kind of pitch, if any pitching at all.
Yeah.
So what's the best approach to that for people who've done nothing like it?
I think we talk a lot about telling the story, and stories sell. We're kind of preconditioned to respond well to stories. That's how tradition has passed through generations. And so if you're sitting there and telling people about you, everything about me, a lot of the things I talk about in my sales training is nobody cares about you. It's a bit of a bitter truth. But we go out and tell everyone about what we do because we're excited and passionate about it. But actually, if we switch it and start thinking about what we're doing for others and turning that into a story and what pain we're solving and why we're doing what we're doing and being authentic and what brings us to do that at that time for which people, actually it draws people in a lot easier. And so that's the type of direction that I'm trying to deliver to those session.
Tell us a little bit about some of those sessions then that you run with Sales Geeks. You've got a sales club, right?
Yeah. So the sales club is something I'm really passionate about. It's something I do and will be doing for free for the foreseeable. It's about once every 6 weeks, and I do it in Watford, typically in or around Watford, and moving in. I've done some in Hemel and will be coming over to Berkhamsted as well in the near future. And that is a free session where I try and get a load of people together. There's tends to be about 40 to 60 people in the room at the moment. We're trying to grow it. And there's obviously the networking opportunity with those local businesses, but also we run a free training session in that, and we'll pick a topic each time. The last couple have been prospecting. So we did a sort of part 1 and part 2. And we turn it into a really interactive session. So we'll get everyone talking, discussing, debating around a subject. I'll bring some theory in, get people thinking, and try and get people going away with some actions and holding themselves accountable to where they take that from that point. But it is something that people can take away, get some actionable insights to take to their business to activate the next day or the next morning, and make it a really casual, easy environment to just sort of get thinking about your business a bit more than being in it, working on the business, but doing it in a really casual and engaged way, thinking about things you might not otherwise be thinking about.
Why do people find sales so difficult, do you think?
I think that comes down to the core of what we're about, which is trying to change the perception of sales. And I think sales, I know it's got a bad rap, right? We try and shy away from being a salesperson. We all sell, whether it's whether you're running your own business and you're actually having to generate sales for your business, or even selling to your family, your partner, your kids. You're selling all the time, whatever it might be. But this concept of being a salesperson is a challenging one because we have stereotypes associated with it, and that makes us feel a bit icky. We picture the second-hand car salesman, the estate agent, and there are very good estate agents and second-hand car salesmen out there. But unfortunately, it's the reputation that goes with it, or the double glazing salespeople. It's being tried to. You feel like you're being sold something that you don't necessarily want to buy, and being cornered in a pressured situation. And that's what we put there as the stereotype for sales. Whereas actually it can be something very different. And so when we're trying to change the perception of sales, we're trying to make people understand that sales is more about problem solving, about being really interested in the customer, in the person who has that problem, understand the very nature of why they've got that problem, where it comes from, the implication of what that means if you don't solve that problem, and then trying to match what you have. If you feel genuinely that you can solve that problem, then the challenge is how you match the problem with what you have to solve it. And then the art is then how you bring those two together and make sure that you're the solution that person's choosing. And there's a lot of psychology that goes into that. We talk a lot about human behavior, about why people buy. There's a lot that goes on in our minds, and trying to link those two together. So when you do that, it starts to become more of almost like a sport with a set of rules, techniques, tactics, all that stuff in the right way that you can become really good at. And there's definitely an art form in that. There's the sort of the 80-20. The 80% is the science, and probably the 20% is who we are, our authenticity, our authentic self, bringing our personalities to the fore. But really the art of sales is the science.
So business owners and business leaders are taught a lot about those systems and processes, and sales is no different, right? It's if you get into that rhythm, you get into that cadence, and it's about practice, I guess, as well, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. And I mean, the sales clubs that we just talked about are all well and good, and any training is all well and good, right? We can sit there in a classroom and learn the theory, but really until you put it into practice and you just do it more and more, you get the confidence to realize actually you just get used to the process of what you need to do. And that comes down to just asking the right questions and then really leaning in and listening to the answers. And listening is something we all think we're good at. Unfortunately, not a lot of us actually are. That's a lot of layers of listening that once you start to, again, practice and really put them into practice, that you start to, it becomes second nature and just become better at it. So it is like any sport, the more you practice, the more you train, the more you actually get out there on the field and do it, the better you become. It's like growing muscles.
So full disclosure, we've worked together before. You were massively helpful with our business, and in particular, I think for us, getting us into our niche and finding just that right person to talk to and the right person with the problem. So is that where every business should start, or where's the best place to start?
I think, yeah, and thank you for kind words. I think understanding your audience is really critical. We all, most of us, unless you're in a really niche or unless you purposefully go into a niche right from the start, I think the belief is that everyone can be my customer and I want to go out there and sell everything. And if you niche, then I'm going to miss out on a whole swathe of business. And it's just not the case. And just because you niche, it doesn't mean to say you can't sell to everyone. But what it means, and we hear this term ICP, your ideal customer profile, really understanding who your customer is. Who is the customer that you would want to clone to make you really successful? Understanding them means that you really understand the people and the business. You understand the industry. You start using the jargon of the industry, you become relevant. Then you understand the people you're selling to and the sort of challenges they face every day and the things that they want to achieve, the gains that they want to see, the goals that they have. When you get a real understanding of all of those aspects, your positioning becomes so much more targeted and you become that much more relevant to the people you're talking to, rather than this sort of one-size-fits-all spray and pray approach, which doesn't really land on anyone. And as I said, if you may well get a customer that's not your ICP come in, then you get to decide whether that's the right side of customer that you should be working with. And if you want to, that's fine. You can. It just means that when you're going out to market, you're being precise and you know the conversation you're having with the people you need to be having it with.
And I think repeating then that message is the thing that people are nervous of. It's like, well, I said that last week and I did a LinkedIn post about that last week and now I'm going to say the same thing. Is that right? But no one's going to see that first message, are they? Or, yeah, I think it's about repetition.
Yeah. We use the term professional consistency or professional persistence, more to the point. I think there's a difference between being, aggressive and getting in someone's face and all the rest of the negative kind of words. But we need to be persistent because we were talking about this just on Thursday at the Sales Club last week. And we spend a lot of time crafting the perfect email, right? We use AI to get the right words and we iterate and then we get the perfect headline with all the right little catches, maybe asking a question and emojis and all the rest of the things that we think are going to absolutely hit the nail on the head with the audience that I want to connect to. And then we send it and we go, yes, they're going to come pouring in. And what happens is that email sits there in the inbox of 2,000 other emails that are being aimed at that person every single day, and it just gets lost. And lo and behold, nothing happens. Or we might put a LinkedIn post out there, as you say, and again, it's just lost in a sea of everyone else doing it. But if we're persistent in that communication in multiple channels, suddenly, and most importantly, we're adding value, then eventually the penny starts to drop, that the name that I keep on seeing aimed at me or the emails that I keep on seeing coming to me or the LinkedIn message start to resonate. They start to kind of feed in. And then that point where you pick up the phone and you call that person and you say, hey, I'm Leigh or I'm Ben. And I don't know if you've seen my messages on LinkedIn or emails. Actually, you know what? I have. And yes, you've finally broken through and I am interested. Let's have a conversation. It's an ideal world, but it does work that way. You have to be persistent and continue that communication.
I think the other word there is resilience as well, isn't it? From particularly if you're in the world of cold calling, but also if cold outreach on LinkedIn or, as you say, on email, anywhere else, you've got to be resilient and keep going.
It's the absolute top word. Outside of listening and questioning, which are the key traits of sales, resilience is big, right? And when you're doing something like, literally cold calling or emailing or, that prospecting side, it's top there because it's a numbers game. It is, we talk about having a top 10 list of customers and really making sure that You are going deep and intentional with your customers that you really want to reach out to. But outside of that, you're going to be told no a lot. And it is just the ability to just go, okay, it will happen. And it becomes a numbers game.
So how does this differ? We've got people who watch the podcast, hopefully people are watching the podcast and listening along. Different size business, different in different parts of their business life, but also some are going to be B2B, some are going to be B2C. How does the sales cycle or the sales, we'll talk about the sales cycle in a minute, but how does that sort of sales setup look? Because is it different between the two, or the fundamentals are just the same?
Yeah, I hear this a lot, and actually one of the most common things that I hear is oh, have you got experience in this? This is what we do. Do you know? Are you construction or plumbing or whatever it might be? And there's two sides of that. Firstly, to your point, the sales challenges are broadly very similar, right? It falls into four main pillars, and these are the four main pillars that I'll typically focus on when I'm working with a client. It is the proposition. So are we selling the right stuff to the right people? Often we're out there talking about what we do, but it's not necessarily landing because we're not articulating that message to the right people, as we were saying before, the ICP, and is the message relate to who wants to receive that message. So crafting that, understanding who your audience is, making sure the message lands. The second is the pipeline. So where's that business coming from? And we often look through one lens, but actually there's a really wide range of areas. You've got inbound and outbound, you've got partners, suppliers, you've got referrals, events, network. There's so many different areas. You'd like to call it a pipeline pie. Think about a pie chart or a pie that you're splitting up into sections, and understanding how you're going to focus on each of those areas. Then we look at the process. So we have leads coming in somehow, and we talk about that in terms of where and how those leads are going to come in. But what are you going to do with them once they hit? So how do you take them through the process to win that client in the end? What do those conversions look like from stage to stage? What even does the stages look like? And how do you craft it in a way that you can work in a system through a process to make sure that you're winning as much business as possible? And that has in turn the benefit of actually realizing that you don't necessarily need to fill the top of the hopper so much. You can actually look at increasing the conversions of your existing pipeline and make sure that you're winning more of the customers that come in rather than filling more leads at the top. So that's the process. And then the final one is the people. So have you got the right people with the right skills doing the right stuff? So, and then we look at the training and how to sell, the art of, I guess, the science of selling that I referred to earlier. So those four pillars are fairly standard regardless of what you do, right? You could be a £20 million organization, or you could be a £100,000 revenue a year. You still got the same challenges. The nuances sit on top of that. And yes, you need to be able to kind of adapt to that. One of my clients has a sales cycle that is 5 years, which is absolutely insane. 5-year sales cycle.
Wow.
To do with buildings, so architectural world. Yeah. So they get bought in before the building's even been approved. And then before the sale happens, the building has to be up and built. So which is madness. Right?
One of my questions was going to be, everyone talks about the 90-day sales cycle. Is that the same across every other business? And clearly not.
Very, very not. And you can have 1 week sales or product-led sales or super fast. And then you've got the extremes. And so there's part of that is that's uncontrollable, right? So you've got to focus on what you can control and get really, really good at that bit.
Control the controllables.
Precisely. And then, there's the circle of influence. There's what we can influence, but being conscious of what we can and can't control and going, okay, let's really hone in on what you can about the stuff you can't. And that, I guess, brings me to the element of what Sales Geek is all about, which is a collective of, I think there's 26, 27, it might be, of us around the UK. There's 65 of us around the world. We're about 7 years old as a franchise. And we are all from very diverse backgrounds, but all of us from large, typically corporate environments of sales and sales leadership over the last 20, 25 years. So if I have a particularly nuanced customer of a certain vertical, I can engage with any one of the group across the country, across the world, and go, okay, tell me what you know about this particular industry. Help me navigate what I know in the world of sales into this specific niche. And we'll have a call, a chat, and may even bring them in if necessary. But typically it's the surface layer that I need to understand and how it adapts to the fundamentals that I talked about. And from there, it's very easy to move on. And I haven't been stumped yet.
So talk to me a little bit about your journey then, and your journey through sales, and then how you then went into the franchise. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, so my career has been quite varied, which I love, and by design in some senses. I actually purposefully wanted to kind of get lots of different experiences through my life. But I started off, I actually ran my own IT services company about 25 years ago. That was my first foray into sales and understanding that actually I enjoyed the problem solving bit than I did the screwdriver bit. And went and sold that business and worked for an IT services company and moved into telco, and actually was selling into the public sector for quite a while, which is a really interesting space, utterly frustrating, but also thoroughly rewarding at the same time. And then moved out into sort of enterprise and mid-market, and then actually navigated into the product and proposition space and built a product line at Virgin Media Business. I was there for about 8 years, of all the things that they didn't do as standard. So it was, we used to call them partner products. So people were selling through us, and actually I got to sit on the other side of the table and be sold to by manufacturers and companies who wanted us to sell their products and services to our customer base. And I've got some great stories and memories of what a good and not so good salesperson looks like. You know, the persistence of, okay, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to go round you, get the yes, and it will be dictated to you what you do. Utterly frustrating as a buyer. But when you've got a good salesperson that knows what they're doing, and you are given a JFDI from your boss to tell you to do something, you're like, damn, that's a good salesperson. They've done their job. So, yeah, that's it's a tricky situation. But anyway, the corporate world there was taught me a lot. Yeah. And then I was wooed over into the world of Silicon Valley and San Francisco startups and scale up companies, and I started building and running sales teams here in the UK, Europe, and over even to Middle East and Africa. Sales teams for American startups in the tech space, and that was just fascinating. Building teams and understanding what makes a great team, and how you can basically start from nothing, from zero revenue here in Europe, and build it up. And those companies just got bigger and bigger, and I was running enterprise and mid-market teams for some companies that had just floated, until it gets to the point where you're kind of thinking, I'm not so sure I'm enjoying this anymore. I'm not so sure this is living to my own internal values. Mm-hmm. And I guess over 20 odd years, you start to realize what makes you tick.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing that sticks in my mind, the commission checks and the successful sales and all of that stuff, it's great. And you live to your means and all the rest of it. But actually the things that make a difference and really stick with me still to this day are where I've taken people from 20% to 120%, and seeing the effect that had on them, their families, their environment, on them, their mental state, just the difference you can make in people and helping people from sort of on their journey. And when you take that, and then my growing fascination, and I guess, I used to refer to myself as a bit of a sales geek just because I became obsessed with the psychology, with the methodologies of all of, whether it's Challenger, Sandler, MedPick, all these different acronyms that fly around that most small businesses have no idea about. But
I don't know.
You get drilled into it through enterprise. But you take bits from all of them and you kind of think, well, actually, I really like that bit and I really like that bit. And you put it into practice and you see what works. And just thought, how do I put those two things together? And I thought I can just go and do this on my own. And that was almost the path until I came across Sales Geek and met Rich Few, who runs it, and met the team up there, James, Lucy, and Tom, and the rest of the gang. Really small bunch of people up in Blackburn. And I just thought, there is a bunch of people that think the same way I do, that approach it in the same way I do, a little bit not blue and grey, if you know what I mean. And just had a bit of personality about it, challenging the status quo. Loved this idea of changing the perception. And I just thought, hang on, there's a way in which I can grow my own business, do what I love, make it my own, but I've got the support, learning and structure to sort of give me a helping hand.
Yeah.
But more than that, the community that I mentioned before that I can lean into anytime I like. And everyone is the same as me. It's quite odd that we are very similar in our approach and our backgrounds as well. And we're all 20, 25 plus years in sales leadership. So together we've got over 1,000 years, and so it's a tremendous vault of knowledge and experience.
So thinking about all that knowledge and experience across businesses, huge, large, medium, small, is there a mistake that you see a lot, the same mistake that's made in sales? Is there, if there's one thing that you could, I guess, evangelize about, saying, don't do this because this is the one thing that's going to kill it for you?
What it is talking, it's the same thing, talking about us, talking about ourselves, which is really what I've just done here.
Well, yes, but that's allowed on a podcast, on a business podcast, that's allowed.
Okay. So yeah, I see it all the time. And in fact, I've seen it through my professional career in enterprise, in the biggest companies. I've seen it in the smallest companies, and we all do it. We all think that everyone wants to hear what we do.
Yeah, so we've talked about this before. I refer to it as people who just wheel over themselves on their websites. So it's, we do this and we do that and we do the other. They don't talk about their customer or their customer's problem. They talk about their grandfather who's been in business for gazillions of years. That means absolutely nothing to what they're actually selling.
It's just missing a trick. And yeah, it's a real shame. What you want to see is people talking. People who see the content, marketers talk about this, that when you see content, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, LinkedIn, you want to see something and go, that's me. Like, you're talking to me. I get it. And stop someone in the tracks. The sad truth that the majority of the time we're looking at this stuff, on socials or Instagram, whatever it might be. We're in bed or sitting on the toilet or whatever it is, scrolling, right? And just scrolling in a sort of weird hypnosis state. And actually, what you want to do is get to that point where you're going, hang on a moment, he's talking directly to me and I get it, right? And if someone's sitting there talking about themselves, it's just scroll past, no one cares. But if they're talking to you, I'm mentioning something which is dear to you, then you're going to go, I've stopped me in my tracks.
And you actually see that way more now in social adverts and social posts, where it starts off, business owners of Berkhamsted.
Yes.
Make sure you're listening to the Berko and Beyond podcast or whatever it is. Actually, I should do one of those, shouldn't I? I should do a couple of those promos. But yeah, and that's literally calling it out. You don't get much more niche than that.
Yeah. I mean,
you do get more niche than business owners, but you see a lot of stuff on social now that is accountants.
Yeah.
Have you got?
And that's very specific targeted advertising, and so you can do that. You can really drill into some ridiculous niches. If you're even looking for a specific one person, you could spend money on an advertising campaign to reach that person. And the advert would say, "Hi, Ben, if you're listening to this, this is just for you." And my God, you're going to get that person's attention.
Which
right?
we're not far off, and some stuff's already happening, particularly in cold outreach and that, with using AI and other bits and bobs. I don't
Exactly.
know what the other bits and bobs would be. It's the AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting all those tech stacks together to do those.
But the key is then the messaging that comes behind that target needs to be specific, and whether that's on a website, whether that's on what you're talking about, whether that's on an outreach, or even in a proposal. You've gone down the line, you're now at proposal stage to a client. The first thing I see in those proposals is me. Here's all the customers we work with. Let me talk about all the stuff I want to talk about us, our customers, what we do, how we do it.
Whereas
None
I'm just
of
going
it.
to page 5.
It's just like, tell me the cost,
right?
or
what's the cost?
But if I'm really laser focused on your problems, that I understand your problems, I understand the implications of those problems, I understand and getting across how we're going to address them, then there's going to be a lot more attention.
I think we're touching here as well on the follow-up, aren't we? And the fact that for me, that was, and it still is, probably the place where I lack in my sales system or funnel is just following up more often. Just, again, the cadence. I think cadence is a great word in business anyway, but certainly in sales.
Yeah.
It's that, the atomic habits, the cadence, and just following up and just giving a bit of value, or just without saying, just checking in.
The word. Every time I hear myself say it, I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
How do I say this without putting the word just? And I mean, the following up on something, I mean, there's so much to that issue of following up.
I'm just then thinking about this 5-year sales cycle for someone.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of following up in those 5 years.
There are, and a lot of different moving parts in that, and different areas of that cycle. But I think the key of following up is signposting it. Again, one of the biggest things that are missed on every interaction with a customer, it is having a diarized follow-up step. And that might be moved. It might be, I'm a bit busy. Can we move it forward or back? And sometimes then you get ghosted and all the rest of it. And ghosting's a whole subject on its own. But making sure you don't lose that opportunity while you've got that person to go, what does the next step look like? But then the next step has to add value. Because if you're not adding value to that person, why on earth should they listen to you? And often it is, I wanted to check in. I wanted to see how this is going. I'm just calling to see this. I would like to get a meeting with you because X, Y, Z. And we need to just flip the script 180 degrees and think about why that person would want to meet with you. Why would they want to have a follow-up meeting? What value are they receiving that makes them want to take the next step?
I think one of the other approaches that works well is just just wanted to know, do you still want to solve X problem with X solution?
Yeah.
And because often it's, so for us as a video production company, we've had that conversation. Often, as we've discussed, people don't want a video. They want a problem solving.
Exactly.
They don't realize that the video can solve that problem, see it as a nice to have. We talk about it being more than a nice to have. Then, of course, again, it comes to the ghosting. It's like they seem to have disappeared. It's like they're just busy. We're all busy. They've gone off and done something else. So sometimes a short email saying, are you still interested?
Yeah.
Works as well as, I've seen this. And this would be of interest to you. So it's mixing it up, right?
Yeah, I think there's definitely these are the challenges that we spoke about. How are they still presenting themselves? How are you dealing with it? These sort of questions can absolutely help as much as it is delivering the value. But it is, it's just making sure you're thinking about it from their perspective for sure. And also, you hit on a really interesting point there about the problem you're solving. We can, and there's been a number of clients of mine where, again, focused on the service and solution that they provide, which is great, and generally, really top tier capability. But it's sort of, then you ask the question, and I deliberately provocative in this, so why should I care? And then, well, because in your case, video production, well, we make great videos. So what? Well, because it'll make you look great. So, well, and you come down to the fact that, well, maybe from a video testimonial perspective, for example, it's easier to sell and get through that consideration phase when you've got other customers talking about you than you talking about yourself. So actually a really well-produced video is going to help you do that. But even then, it's a so what? Well, how are you getting your business at the moment? What's your conversion rates? Is that looking okay? Is that where it needs to be? Not really. Okay, should we work on your conversion of getting from interest to close? Well, actually getting some testimonials out there and social proof is going to massively help that. And this is how we go about doing it. So it's really nothing about the video production. It's about solving a problem of sales and sales conversion.
And that's what worked really well for us, because when we first met, and I've always called it out with video production companies, they've got everything on their website, from drones to photos to live streaming to this, to that, to the other. And actually you are talking to way too many people. And what you helped us do was get narrow on our IPC, and also on our offering, on which is not to say that we don't do podcasts or live streaming or brand story videos, things like that, but it's what essentially we go to market with, and we talk to those people because we know we do those two things, case studies and testimonials, brilliantly.
Yes, you
and
do.
That's how we do it, even though I've just said it myself, but thanks for confirming that. Listen, our time has nearly come to an end. So two things. One, tell us where everybody can find out about Sales Club and where they can find out more information on Sales Geek. And can you leave us with a little gem of one little thing that perhaps people aren't doing in sales that could just help turn that wheel a little bit more?
Okay, so where you can find me, LinkedIn is probably the best space. So you can just search up Leigh Cohen, that's Leigh Cohen. Sales Geek, and you'll find me with the handle Cohen
We'll
on
put
Sales Geek.
all those links as well in the show notes.
And our website, salesgeek.co.uk, you can find all the information there as well. And the gem, God, that's the tricky one, more than what I've said already. I mean, I would probably just sum up the two things that are, well, maybe three things that are most important, which is knowing your audience and making sure you're really selling to that audience in terms of understanding not how you're selling, but why they should buy. What's going on in their world that makes you so relevant. One of the classic things about sales is that we assume that we need to be this extrovert character, that we have to have the gift of the gab. I think that's one of this sort of preconceptions of being a good salesperson. And I couldn't disagree with it more. I think, yes, you need to have a personality. You have to be engaging. You've got to be able to speak to people without a doubt. But actually, some of the best salespeople that I've ever had the privilege of managing, of working with, and if those people are watching, then you know who you are. But they are actually introverts, and they're not the sort of life and soul of the party. But what they're really good at is listening, because they just shut up. They just sit there and listen really well, and really listen. They ask great questions in time. They don't interrupt. And then they, and then they're just really professionally persistent. They see it as a science, and they're just really good as a result. And for me, that's more important than being this big, gregarious, extrovert sort of personality. It's making real connection.
Do you think that part of that is being an introvert? Do you think that also helps people? Does it help? Are they better at narrowing down on their ideal customer?
I think if you listen better, if you really tune your mind to the listening rather than the talking, you pick up on so much more that you can become so much more relevant to that person. So yes, knowing your ICP, not IPC.
Yeah, I keep saying IPC, which really would be better if,
knowing your ideal customer means that you speak the language, you understand the chat, you inherently understand where they are, what they stand, what they need. But then you're listening to the subtleties of what they're saying, not only what they're saying, but why they're saying it. We have the logic behind people say things, and we don't often ask, why are you even saying that in the first place? And then there's the emotion that carries beneath that. How are they acting while they're saying that? Is there fear? Is there excitement? Is there concern? All of the emotions that sit there, got to pick up on that stuff. And then really understanding what it's like to be in their shoes, sort of point of view. So can I be you? If somebody was interviewing me, can I understand it from your perspective? Do I really have all the information that I need to understand you? And if that's the case, then I've really listened. And then I've got all that information that I can process and turn into some amazing questions. It's going to help me really make sure that I'm tying really what you need to what I have to offer. Think about the 3 questions when you're talking to prospects. Why they should change from what they're doing at the moment, why they should do it now, and why they should choose you. You can answer, if you can even better get them to answer those questions, then you've pretty much got the sale. And in that, it is making sure you're flipping it to thinking about them the whole time, not talking about you, but you asked for one. I'm just giving you I can't help myself.
I like it. It's always the added value when talking with you, Leigh.
And you mentioned it yourself, Ben, following up, right? It is literally, it's such an easy thing to do. We give ourselves a task to just reach out and find and connect to most people and do the networking and all the things that we do to try and get attention. And then we leave it and we stop following up, or we don't, with proposals out there, or we have a meeting and we don't, really follow it up properly. So it's the thing we most often miss. And I would, just really focus on that and get some system, whether it can just be a spreadsheet, it can be a CRM, it can be anything. People often ask me, what's the right CRM we should use? Is this, that? It just doesn't. It doesn't matter. Is how you use it is the important thing. You can have the best tool in the world, but if you're not using it, it's useless, right? So it doesn't matter. It could be a spreadsheet. If you're using it well, it's great. So that'll be it.
Thank you very much. On that, then, I'm off to follow up with my prospects as soon as we've finished the record. Leigh, thanks for joining us on Berko and Beyond.
You're welcome. Great to be here. Thanks very much.
Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of Berko and Beyond. The links to everything we've talked about or mentioned today are in the show notes or in the summary below this video, along with the links to all our social media channels, where we'd really appreciate a follow and a share. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. It really does make a massive difference to us. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, then send us an email to podcast@berkoandbeyond.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.